Hi. Today we're going to discuss what it means to be grateful. People who are grateful are thankful and appreciative of the things and the people that they have in their lives. We're not always grateful for everything that we have because we don't always understand that we should be thankful and appreciative of what we have. So sometimes we need to learn to be grateful for something through having a experience that might not be so easy, through an experience that might be difficult. Sometimes that's the only way that we can open our eyes and learn to be grateful. In that case, we learn to be grateful even for the difficult experience that we may have because it helped us see and understand that we should be thankful and appreciative of the things that we have. So today, we are going to read a story called The Wild Christmas Reindeer. It's written and it's also illustrated by Jan Brett. So we're not always grateful for what we have. Maybe Tika is or is not grateful for what she has. She is the main character in the story. There's the inside cover. Sorry. And some beautiful winter illustrations for you to see. And there's some reindeer. So I think we can determine where the story takes place. Here we go. Okay. Tika was excited and a little afraid. This year, Santa had asked her to get the reindeer ready to fly on Christmas Eve. Tika had never done this before and she wanted everything to be perfect. Tika lived up in the Arctic in the shadow of Santa's winter farm. The last of the snow geese had flown south and everyone's mind was on Christmas. The workshop was alive with the sounds of saws sawing, hammers hammering, and brushes painting as they all worked to have the toys and presents ready for delivery on Christmas Eve. I'll show you some of that. Beautiful illustrations for you to enjoy. Tika knew it was time for her to go in search of the reindeer. They had been out in the tundra, wild and free, since last Christmas, and Tika was sure they wouldn't want to go back to Winter Farm to train. She would have to be strong and firm. At last, she found them. Bramble and Heather, windswept in lichen, Snowball, Krog, Twilight, and Tundra. Oh boy, Tika doesn't look too well there, does she? Look at the look on her face. Tika took a deep breath and shouted out, "Let's go! Move, move, move!" The reindeer were bewildered by Tika's voice. Their heads went up to see who this loud creature was. But they let her herd them together and headed back toward Winter Farm. Tundra gave her the most trouble. Tika didn't know that he considered himself the leader and was not used to being bossed around. He liked to stay next to Twilight, but she was separated from him and running near the front. When they got to the barn, Tika put them in different stalls. Tundra snorted impatiently. Now, they're used to being together. They're not used to being in separate stalls, are they? By the next morning, when Tika went into the barn, all the reindeer were restless and upset. Lichen was frightened of Krog, who kept nipping at him. Bramble was so worried she drove Heather wild. And Twilight kept calling out to Tundra, who was just plain angry and stamping his hooves. Tika groomed each reindeer. She wanted them to look sleek and glossy for Santa. One by one, She brushed and combed their coats and pushed and pulled at their tangled manes. She brushed so long and hard that their ears started to turn pink. Oh, those poor reindeer. She's not being very gentle with them, is she? Well, she's just trying to make Santa happy. I wonder if that's what she's thinking, and that's all she's thinking about. Tika took the reindeer outside. Now she was ready for the real training to begin. Snowflakes danced in the air as she tried to stand them in two lines and put on their harnesses. But they wouldn't stay lined up. She had put Tundra at the back with Heather instead of at the front with Twilight. So he kicked out at Heather, who then bolted into Bramble. Tika scolded the reindeer. "Don't move," she cried. But they all ran off wild-eyed, and she had to go after them and bring them back. The next day, Tika harnessed the reindeer in the barn before taking them out into the snow. Everything went right until she got them lined up outside and tried to steer them first to the left and then to the right. To make the sleigh fly, they would need to pull together smoothly. But everything went wrong. Tundra crashed into Heather, Snowball blew up a bramble, Windswept knocked over Twilight, and then Lichen locked antlers with Krog. She's not able to get them to work as a team, is she? I wonder why. "Stop!" Tika cried as she watched the reindeer paw the air. "Unhook!" she shouted as they tried to free their long antlers. Then Lichen and Krog fell over into the snow. The harder they pulled, the more their antlers locked. The reindeer were frantic, and Tika only made it worse by yelling at them. Do you agree? There's the elves working in the workshop. Tundra and Heather rushed to help, but the antlers did not break free. Windswept nudged at Lichen, and Bramble ran to help Krog. But the more they tried to help, the more they got tangled up themselves. Their necks strained and their muscles bulged, but their antlers did not budge. Tika wailed, "Oh, please, it's almost Christmas Eve." But the reindeer could not move. A frosty silence hung in the air. Tika looked at the tangled reindeer, once so bold and free, and began to cry. "It's my fault," she said. "I've spent all my time yelling at you instead of helping. I'm sorry." And one by one she gave each reindeer a hug. "Tomorrow," she said, "we'll go to work in a new way. No yelling, no screaming, and no bossing. I promise. Let me try to help you get free." Seems like Tika is changing her ways. Seems like her attitude is starting to change. The reindeer listened to this new voice. Heather's eyes sparkled. Krog cracked a reindeer grin. Bramble giggled and Snowball sighed. Tundra laughed and Twilight smiled. The more they laughed, the more they shook, and as they shook, their antlers rattled and rumbled. And before Tika could do anything, she heard a spring, spring, sprung sound. It was the antlers jiggling free. Imagine that! I wonder why. She is treating them differently. Could that be why? Quietly, Tika led the reindeer back to the barn. She sleeked their coats. She gently brushed their ears and combed out their manes. Tundra nuzzled her cheek. Isn't that the one that gave her the most difficulty in the beginning, Tundra? who's now nuzzling her cheek. And look at how happy Tika now looks. She doesn't look angry like she did and frustrated like she did in the beginning, does she? The next day, the reindeer lined up in 2 lines, ready for the harness, with Twilight and Tundra leading the line. They practiced turning left and they practiced turning right. Tika directed them softly. Tundra pulled for Twilight. Bramble was gentle to Lichen. Windswept helped Heather, and Snowball nestled against Krog. Together, they practiced long and hard. They didn't notice that it was getting dark, and they almost didn't hear a jingle in the distance. It was Santa standing by the sleigh, piled high with presents and ready to go. Now the reindeer were ready, too, and Tika led them to the sleigh. Santa smiled and nodded his thanks. Then he climbed aboard and waved to Tika, who watched as the wild reindeer rose up together and carried the sleigh off into the night. And here's Tika, tucked into bed, and there's Santa in his sleigh, heading up into the sky with some very happy reindeer that were able to pull their act together. Why were they able to pull their act together? Merry Christmas, by the way. Might it have something to do with how the main character, Tika, changed her attitude? She went from being very upset, maybe angry, maybe a little bit annoyed and hostile, to learning a lesson from a difficult situation that she created with the reindeer. So at the beginning of the story, she didn't really appreciate the fact that she was chosen by Santa to get the reindeer ready, right? She just had a job to do and she had to get done. She didn't care about how she did it. She lost that underlying appreciation for the fact that Santa chose her, right? But in the end, she learned through that hard lesson when she noticed how upset and scared the reindeer were that, you know what? She was chosen by Santa. She should be grateful for what kind of opportunity she has been presented with. So sometimes stories don't always go the way we expect them to go. Sometimes a character may start one way, but then things happen in the story and they change. In this instance, Tika changed from not being grateful for this opportunity that she had and being able to work with these beautiful reindeer to having a difficult situation and learning to be grateful and appreciative and thankful for what she had and the opportunity she had. What are you thankful for? Has there ever been a lesson in your life that you've learned the hard way because you've been faced with a difficult situation? And then looking back, you think, that was really hard. But I'm really glad that happened to me because I understand now. I hope you enjoyed the story. You can take a look in the Google Classroom for some questions for you to answer. So I hope you enjoyed the story. And I hope that you, like me, are grateful for things like Jambrette and not only her beautiful words, but her beautiful illustrations. I hope you enjoyed those as well.